At the beginning of the film, it showed a Mexican girl named Carla, who at that time was checking the health of her neighbor. It is known that Carla was still studying in her final year and soon she would graduate to become a doctor. After checking the health of her neighbor, Carla went home to meet his older brother. Carla's older brother was named Mario. They only lived together in the house, while their mother worked in a factory in the United States. Mario said that their mother had just transferred money for Carla's college fees and Carla said that she would take the money tomorrow after college. The next day, Carla was studying and was told that she was one of the best doctor candidates at her university. Then, the scene moved forward to Mario, who wanted to meet one of the Mexican intelligence officers. When they met, Mario immediately told the officer everything he knew about the cartel because it turned out Mario is an informant. So here, the intelligence officer asked Mario to disappear for a few days because the cartel had already noticed Mario's status as a police informant. The intelligence officer also said that many other informants had recently been killed by the cartel and he didn't want Mario to become the next victim. Hearing this, Mario tried to stay calm and relaxed while saying that he would disappear according to the order. On the other hand, Carla has just returned from campus and she stopped by the money changer to take the money her mother transferred yesterday. Carla was suspicious of a person who seemed to be watching her. Carla tried to calm down and then contacted her mother who worked in America. Carla thanked her mother and said that now she was taking the money. After taking the money and glancing at the person, it turned out that the person had gone. In short, Carla went home and was quite surprised when she caught Mario packing. Mario asked Carla to go with him in a few days, but Carla wondered what really happened, and then she was even more surprised when she knew that Mario had huge savings. Mario finally told Carla that all this time he was a police informant. At the same time, 2 cartel members arrived and they had been sent to finish off Mario. Therefore, Mario and Carla rushed out through the back door and a chase broke out. Unfortunately, in the middle of the chase, one of the cartel members was able to shoot Mario and without hesitation, they immediately finished him off. After that, they also chased Carla, who now ran away to the car wreckage. After a long time, Carla accidentally found a tunnel and she decided to go into the tunnel. After she was feeling safe, Carla tried to treat her wound on her hand first before she continued to walk in the tunnel. Even though Carla was afraid and panicked because the tunnel was very dark, she still continued to walk. And after several hours of walking through the tunnel, Carla finally managed to get out and now she was in a warehouse. Here, Carla immediately walked to the surrounding area and she was very surprised when she saw an American flag, which meant Carla was now in America. Then, Carla came out of the warehouse and tried to look for someone who might be able to help her. Not long after, she saw a house and decided to go inside while calling the owner. Carla was very surprised because the fan was on, but there wasn't a single person there answering her. When Carla was about to wash her face in the kitchen, suddenly something happened. Here, Carla accidentally found the body of a man with long hair who looked like had just been killed. Carla begged the person who shot her to stop because she was not a bad person and she just wanted to ask for help. And when Carla appeared from hiding, it turned out that the person was also seriously injured. This woman was named Enoch, a CIA agent. Carla said that Enoch was seriously injured and Carla was willing to treat her. At the same time, Enoch suddenly became unconscious due to a lot of blood loss. Carla immediately took Enoch to the room and then tried to treat her whose stomach was injured. After treating this woman, Carla tried to find painkillers in another room, but suddenly she was hit by someone who had just arrived. When Carla woke up from fainting, the person immediately asked where she was and why she was in this place. Carla was just silent and didn't want to answer the question, but she said that she had just saved someone, Enoch. That man immediately checked Enoch's condition to prove Carla's words, and he also found the body of the long-haired man in the kitchen. This man's name was David, who was a member of the CIA. Unfortunately, David didn't understand what really happened to Enoch and the long-haired man because David had just arrived at the place. Then, David approached Carla again to ask what happened to Enoch and the long-haired man. Not only that, David also asked who Carla really was. David then explained that this place was a safe house belonging to American intelligence, It's impossible for Carla to suddenly come to this place because the place is very, very secret. Carla finally said that she came from Mexico, whose house is close to the American border. At one point, Carla accidentally entered a tunnel, causing her to come here. Meanwhile, Carla didn't know what happened with Enoch and the long-haired man, so David could ask Enoch after she woke up. Hearing this, David immediately invited Carla to show him where the tunnel was that she meant. When they were both heading to the tunnel, Carla asked who David and Enoch were, including the body of the long-haired man she saw in the kitchen. David explained that he and Enoch were CIA agents, while the long-haired man was a CIA informant. Shortly, Carla showed David the tunnel in the warehouse, and David just found out about the tunnel. Here, David assumed that the tunnel was probably made by the cartels, so they could smuggle illegal goods from Mexico to America, considering that this warehouse had been around for a long time, before the safe house was built. Then, David wanted to know in detail how Carla was able to get in the tunnel, so Carla told all the chronology to David. Carla also said that her brother had just been killed, and she told him about her status as a prospective doctor. After that, when they returned to the safe house, suddenly David's friend, Marco, came with an informant. David immediately told Marco to take the informant to the safest room. At the room, Marco immediately took off the informant's head, covering while apologizing because he was just carrying out the procedure. This informant's name was Susan, and she was a former subordinate of the drug cartel's boss who wanted to work with the CIA. On the other hand, Carla was being asked to check on Enoch's health. Not long after that, Marco came and asked who Carla was. David then explained everything to Marco about who Carla was. After that, David told Marco to take Carla into the same room as Susan. At the room, Susan asked why the CIA locked her in this room. Marco answered that it was all for Susan's own safety. After that, Susan asked if Carla was an informant, and Carla answered no, saying that she was only trapped in this place by accident. Then, it was finally revealed that Susan was a former subordinate of a drug cartel's boss who chose to betray and would become witnesses at a trial. That's why she was taken to the safe house, so that the cartel mafia wouldn't find Susan's whereabouts. In fact, Susan didn't do this for free, because Susan would be paid handsomely by the CIA if she told the truth at the trial. Susan also said that there were two people who would be witnesses, and one of them was Susan's colleague, the long-haired man. Apparently, until now, Susan didn't know that the long-haired man was already dead. Meanwhile, Marco was with Enoch, and not long after, Enoch woke up and said that the long-haired man suddenly wanted to give up his intention to become a witness at the trial of the cartel boss. After that, the long-haired man tried to escape and attacked Enoch until she was forced to finish him off. Hearing all this, Marco could already guess, and he ordered Enoch to just rest. On the other side, David, who was still curious about Carla, sent Carla's ID card data to the CIA head office. Not long after, Marco came and explained what had happened to Enoch and the long-haired man. Then, Marco came to the room where Susan and Carla were to give them drinks. However, when the door was opened, Susan immediately came out and said that she wanted to go to the toilet. At the same time, a woman came in a car and approached the safe house. It turned out that this woman was the housekeeper in a safe house who always came once every 2 weeks, and her name was Margaret. At that time, Margaret was about to start her work and came in through the back door. Margaret accidentally saw Susan and Marco, who at that time were about to go back to the room after going to the toilet. David saw Margaret on the CCTV and immediately approached her, telling her to come home. David also gave Margaret transportation fees and would contact her later when the safe house is ready to be cleaned. After that, Susan and Marco came to David. Here, Susan said that she no longer wanted to be locked in a small room, and she wanted to be with them. Susan also said that if the CIA kept locking her up, then she would never want to be a witness to the crime of the cartel boss. In the end, David allowed Susan in the guest room, but Marco had to continue to monitor her. Meanwhile, David also planned to return Carla to Mexico, including taking the body of the long-haired man. David didn't want Carla to interfere with their affairs. Shortly, David told Carla to change clothes, and she had to wear a cover on her head. After that, David took Carla to the car because at this time, Carla would be deported to Mexico. When they were far enough from the safe house, David allowed Carla to take off the cover on her head. David said that the head covering was one of the safe house procedures because unauthorized people should not know the location of the safe house. Then David asked where Carla's parents were. Carla answered that her father had died a long time ago, while her mother worked in a factory in America. The scene switched to Margaret, who was now at her house. Not long after, Margaret saw her boyfriend looking at Susan's photo on the laptop. Here, Margaret told her boyfriend that she had just met this woman. Suddenly, Margaret's boyfriend immediately wondered where Susan was. It turned out that Susan had now become a contest for the cartel boss. If someone finds or kills her, the cartel boss will pay the person handsomely. Long story short, Margaret and her boyfriend went to see one of the top cartel officials named Leo. Margaret's boyfriend explained that he knew where Susan was, the woman who would be a witness at the cartel boss trial. Hearing this, Leo looked shocked and immediately asked where she was. However, Margaret's boyfriend said that he wanted to ask for money first for the information he would give. After that, Leo contacted the cartel boss to tell him everything. And this was the cartel boss who had created a competition in finding Susan. The cartel boss told Leo to ask Margaret and her boyfriend to show first where Susan was. When Susan has been found, Leo just has to finish off Margaret and her boyfriend. On the other hand, David and Carla, who have now arrived at the border, and met with one of the CIA agents. David showed the body of the long-haired man, which will be taken to his country in Mexico. David also entrusted Carla because he didn't want this girl to stay in the safe house and interfere with the CIA's affairs. However, David's colleague explained that if Carla returned to Mexico, she would also be hunted by the cartel. It turned out that David's colleague already knew that Carla's older brother was also an informant, and now he was dead. Therefore, for Carla's safety, David had to look after Carla in the safe house until the condition was safe. In the end, David took Carla back to the safe house. On the other hand, Enoch looked better, but she immediately took a gun in the cupboard and then approached Marco and shot him. It turned out that Enoch's main goal was to kill Susan because Enoch was also after the money from the contest made by the cartel boss. It was finally told that the reason Enoch killed the long-haired man was not because the man wanted to escape, but rather because the man was also part of the cartel boss contest. Then, on one occasion when Enoch was about to pick up a gun that had fallen, Marco immediately finished off her. Not long after that, David and Carla finally arrived at the safe house, and they were both shocked when they saw Marco was injured. Marco then explained that Enoch was a CIA traitor who wanted to get money from the cartel boss. Hearing this, David told Marco to calm down and asked Carla to immediately treat Marco. On the other hand, Margaret and her boyfriend were now taking Leo and his cartel group to near the safe house. Here they would first monitor from above to confirm Susan was really there. Not long afterward, they saw Susan who came out because she wanted to get away from the safe house quickly. When David was trying to stop Susan, that's when the sniper shot at Susan. Luckily, the shot only hit Susan's shoulder and Carla immediately treated her. Leo and his gang went to the car, and without hesitation, they killed Margaret's boyfriend. Margaret tried to run as far as possible, but the sniper easily paralyzed her. After that, they got closer to the safe house because they had to be able to finish off Susan that day. Meanwhile, David was seen taking weapons, including bulletproof vests. Then David approached Marco and asked if Marco was ready to fight, and Marco agreed. After that, David told Marco to go through the back with Susan and Carla, while David will stay inside to fight them. For a few moments, Leo and his men started to enter the safe house, and a shootout against David ensued. On the other side, Marco, Susan, and Carla, who were trying to escape, were actually caught by the sniper. Marco immediately threw a smoke grenade, and then they started to take turns dodging attacks from the sniper. However, when it was Marco's turn, it turned out that Marco was shot in the stomach. In the end, the three of them decided to just hide in the warehouse. The scene returned showing David, who was still continuing to shoot at them. On one occasion, David was able to finish off Leo's men. In the meantime, Leo was seen coming out of the house and asked the sniper about where their target was. The sniper immediately pointed towards the warehouse. Shortly, Leo went into the warehouse, and then he started looking for his target. Beside that, David also secretly looked for the whereabouts of his enemy until he met the sniper. Then, without hesitation, this is what David did. Meanwhile, Leo was still continuing to search his target in the warehouse, and finally Leo found Carla, who was hiding alone. Leo threatened Carla so that she would tell him where Susan was. At first, Carla didn't want to answer until Leo was forced to finish off her. But before that happened, David suddenly came and he fought Leo. After Leo was finished off, Carla took David to Susan and Marco's hideout. Apparently, Marco was seriously injured and they immediately rushed away. Long story short, Carla was now at the hotel. Here, Carla saw the news about the cartel boss, who was finally proven guilty based on Susan's testimony, and he would be sentenced to death. Sometime later, David appeared and asked Carla to go somewhere. On the way, Carla asked David about Susan and Marco. David answered that Susan is fine and now lives in Italy. As for Marco, he is also fine and is now taking holiday leave with his family. A few hours later, David finally arrived at his destination, and Carla asked why David had stopped here. It turned out that David had moved Carla to study medicine at the best university in America. Not only that, Carla could also immediately work in any medical department as a thank you from the CIA. Then David told Carla to get out of the car, because the house in front of her was officially Carla's house. And when Carla was about to enter the house, her mother was also there and would live together with Carla.